Welcome to Savvy Business, Life Unscripted, with your host, Christina Rivera, where our guests share their wisdom and valuable business tips, empowering our audience to expand their personal potential.
Hi, Justin Grant. Welcome to Savvy Broadcasting Life Unscripted. We're so grateful to have you here today. You're going to help our listeners and business owners, but also maybe some people who are not business owners but work as employees, better deal with the stresses of work and how the employees can offer better wellness programs in the workplace. As we discussed just briefly before we got started here, a lot of business owners are like, how do we navigate that with everyone? A lot of people working from home, not everyone, but a lot of businesses and people working from home. How do we make sure that our employees are safe and that people are eating the best possible food? So it's not just, it's interesting, Grant. You tell me your perspective. I had someone on last year and he said, you could have the best diet in the universe and you could work out, but if you are not dealing with your mind and your spirit, then you're not going to be as healthy as you can be. What's your perspective?
Yeah, it's all important. It's a great question, Christina.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was doing research for the book, what I learned from recent studies is that employee wellness programs are amongst the most cherished parts of a company culture. So it's very important that companies and organizations of all sorts make an earnest effort to provide well-being programs.
Mm-hmm.
So in addition to the common sense understanding that you get back whatever you give to something such as a well-being program, and also in addition to the normal ingredients of organization, planning, research, and genuine enthusiasm, what really gets at the heart of improving employee well-being in the workplace include ingredients like proper diet, reasonable levels of sobriety, regular fitness and exercise, and then also the more intangible factors of kindness, mutual respect, and appreciation and gratitude. And so what I've learned from also researching for the book that may surprise people is that studies have shown that in the long run, employees and workers and members of organizations value being appreciated more than anything else, even financial compensation. And so, of course, in an ordinary business, financial compensation must be fair and reasonable, as that is one important expression of gratitude and appreciation. And being fairly compensated helps liberate employees to be less obsessed with ordinary survival concerns, and therefore better able to focus on giving to the corporate organization, whatever that is.
Yeah. You make a really good point there. I think there was a book a long time ago and an author, Daniel Pink, who had mentioned just that there were some studies that you just give money to an employee just to incentivize them to work harder. And that works for a very short time until they go back to what they were doing before, because money alone cannot be the deciding factor to get them moving and pumped up again. And from my personal experience, what it's been for me that's really got me pumped up when I'm working with an organization is when the leadership you feel has your back. Like no matter what it is, like, you have family issues, we're here for you, we're going to help you out, you need a little extra time, your husband's in the hospital, they're all banding with you, praying with you, you feel that sense of community. Then when we have a close to do in accounting or whatever it is, you're willing to stay to midnight or whatever it takes because they've got your back. So it's that sense of community I find that's even more important than the cash or whatever. And that, as you mentioned, also being grateful for your employees and the work they put in.
Yeah, right. And of course, the employees can be grateful for the leadership if they feel mutual appreciation.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, in addition to these physical ingredients, these psychological ingredients, also something that is important and beginning to flourish in our culture now that can improve employee well-being and group productivity is what we could call non-religious meditation. So we know from contemporary science that E equals MC squared, or in other words, the universe itself that appears to be so tangible and material is actually all pure energy. And this is what religions have been saying for all time, that the universe is actually spirit. They just call spirit energy. It's the essence of life itself. So just as people are familiar with religious practices like prayer, also a non-religious forms of meditation can help draw in more energy, more spirit, and that helps to both harmonize and inspire individual workers, but also to even harmonize the surrounding environment and create a sort of group cohesion that is not something that has been part of how we've operated in the past, but is increasingly being something that is better understood and has scientific support. And as all this increases, it's reasonable to assume that group meditation and individual meditation will continue to flourish as time marches on.
That's interesting, Justin, because one thing I find about a lot of corporate is like corporate's very separate a lot of times from our spiritual and our psychological health. We'll be like, maybe they'll put on the poster board, oh, here's some psychological people out there if you want to get to, support group or whatever. But it's often kept separate from your work life. And your work life is so much a part of your everyday life. You spend sometimes more time at work than you do with your significant other and your children. And how do you suggest that businesses and corporations bring in not only, like you were mentioning, non-religious meditation, but start to open up the conversation for maybe some of the employees that do have a faith, and that they are open, everyone, to each other's discussion of how they understand and how they practice their faith?
Right. Well, I'd encourage them to read my book, Business and Spirituality.
Yeah, sure. Could you take your book down so they could see it?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is what the book is all about, because as I've said, we have scientific support that the universe itself is energy, and religions have just called energy spirit. So we are energy beings, we are spiritual beings, and as you say, most of our life is spent at work. So to somehow try to deny or suppress our spiritual side while we're spending most of our life trying to be productive members of society just isn't working out very well, right? I mean, when people ignore their essence, their life essence, their spiritual essence, people get bored, sick, depressed, uninspired, and none of that is good for a business, a well-meaning business of any sort.
Yeah.
So now, on the other hand, it is reasonable that at work, people don't want other people's religious beliefs pushed upon them. So it's a complicated situation, to be sure. And I respect that. And I'm very open-minded about spiritual truth from any direction. But yeah, like I said, in the book, there's all sorts of spiritual but not religious methods that can be incorporated into corporate culture. And I believe that with many Fortune 500 companies having meditation programs, fitness programs, yoga programs, etc., that it's only going to continue to grow as the science and acceptance grow.
Yeah. I think that's very important. Acceptance from all areas. I mean, like you said, some people are non-religious, but some people are, and I think it's cool that everyone be able to open that conversation and have an honest conversation, but not like, oh, you got to think like me, because that goes nowhere. But what I think is also really important, and we had a guest come on several years ago. She was called the Queen of Green, which I loved, but she made a challenge to my audience, because we get on a hamster wheel at work of, oh, I got to climb up the ladder, and I've got to get higher, and I've got to do more, and da da da. And what does it mean at the end of the day? When you die here, are you going to say, oh, I didn't work enough? I wish I'd worked more. Most of the time, you're not going to be saying that on your deathbed or your last couple hours on this planet. So she would say, really, the best thing to do is to get connected to nature again, because that's the true essence of, we're really all connected humans to nature. And she challenged us, go out there for just 30 minutes every day and just walk in nature. Now, maybe you live in the city, go to a local park, but just try to be around nature and flowers and animals, and it will just give you a sense of peace. And so me and a number of my people in my audience did it for a month, and my health, I felt so much better in my health and my work, and more productive. And that's the thing. I think people think, like myself, that if I stay at my office longer, if I work harder, I'll be more productive. But is that the case? Sometimes stepping away, getting out with nature for a little bit, will make you that much more productive. What is your thought?
Yeah, absolutely. There's section in my book about nature. And, again, I did all sorts of research because in our day and age, many people do want scientific support because
Hmm.
humanity is increasingly mental compared to where we came from in
Mm.
past ages.
Yeah.
So yeah, unsurprisingly, support for contact with nature is firmly established.
Hmm.
That nature harmonizes us on the inside and inspires us with the infinity of it all.
Mm.
So absolutely, I think that's wonderful. That we should
Connect.
make time to be in nature, and then also we can bring nature inside, with plants and
Hmm.
stones and precious stones,
Hmm.
etc. Even artwork that reminds us of nature can be inspiring. So
Yes,
yeah,
I have
that's
some of that right here.
absolutely
Yeah, but now let's talk about, you talk a lot about nutrition, helping people live a more nutritious and fruitful life with their eating habits. Now, you talk about plant-based diet and how it can impact businesses. I have not been a vegetarian, but a lot of people have sworn by it. How is a plant-based how could it help a business or individuals in the business? Share your perspective on that.
right. Okay, it's a
Mhm.
good question, Christina. So I believe that for most of history, humans have been engrossed with most humans have been engrossed with survival concerns,
Mhm.
and eating animal products such as meats and dairies has been a big part of how human beings have gotten nutrition and survived. And for many human beings on the planet now, that's still how it has to be. But for those of us who have the extreme privilege of living in the modern developed world, we have things like refrigerators and airtight bags and containers and supermarkets and things that our ancestors really could hardly have ever dreamed of. So what that means is we have the ability, the freedom, the privilege to radically rethink our daily dietary choices.
Mhm.
And so we've had scientific support for decades now that a primarily plant-based diet, in contrast to a diet rich in animal products such as meats, supports both near-term and long-term health.
Mm.
And health, of course, relates to our productivity, our uh, sociability with others, and our sense of inspiration that can benefit organizations to which we belong of any kind.
Mhm.
So, in addition to that science about a plant-based diet helping to optimize our physical and even our emotional nature,
Mhm.
also science shows us that human beings have essentially everything in common with the body types of herbivores and
Mm.
the digestive makeup of herbivores. And so, if we choose to eat animal products on a regular basis, really what that means is we're putting needless and tremendous strain on our delicate human organism, and that is exhausting us in the short term and
Mhm.
taking not just years but maybe even decades off our potential lifespan.
Mm.
So all of this is not good for business.
Yeah. Yeah. Sick employees make for not good work. But
Right.
it's interesting. I found for myself a couple years ago, I've gone through a number of fasts, and I found that when I went through a fast and then came off of it, that I required less quantity. So I think one thing that was hard for me to realize is that yes, we eat meat in our society and cheese, a lot of bread, but I think our portion sizes in America are so huge, and we our body becomes used to it, and we're like, oh yeah, that's a normal size plate and that's what I should eat. Until we step back and maybe give our body less, we begin to realize we can operate on a lot less and actually be efficient. What's your perspective on that?
Absolutely. I think fasting is nothing short of miraculous. Um, and again, everything starts with the physical level that, is the material world we interact with, but
Mm.
it reverberates up the emotional, mental, and even spiritual dimensions. So
Mm.
fasting is incredible. It really optimizes uh, our body and being.
Mm.
And then, yeah, when we come off of a fast, we realize we've fallen into habits, many of which we may have inherited from friends, family members, society itself,
Mhm.
and that's forgivable, but it's still not in our best interests. So
Yeah.
it's important that we take these deep breaks from even things like eating, as well as working, so that we can regenerate, refocus, and be inspired by a higher potential for
Yeah.
ourselves.
Yeah, it's interesting. I thought when I went on a week fast that I would just be like a potato in the bed. I wouldn't be able to operate. My brain would be inefficient, and it actually wasn't the case as long as I drank water because I did need to drink. But I found that I was okay and I could get through life. And I think that's one thing we think we'll starve to death if we don't have anything for a bit.
Right,
And actually that's actually not the case. We probably have quite a bit of fat storage for most of us to carry us a bit.
right. Right. I mean, famously, Jesus fasted for 40 days and
Uh-huh.
Buddha for 50 days. And they are the marathoners. So we neophytes don't need to do that, but just a 1-day fast or a
Mhm.
2-day fast,
Yeah.
can be incredible and can help us work up to longer fasts. But yeah, like you said, nobody's going to starve if they don't eat for 2 days or something. I mean, for most of history,
Mm.
people would have a big catch, they'd feast for a day or two, and then they wouldn't eat for 3 days, and so
Mhm.
our bodies are actually designed to fast regularly. It's just we have the curse of prosperity in some ways here in
Yeah.
our world, and we just have more than enough
Yeah.
things like food.
Yeah, exactly. Well, besides getting your book, what's the one step that businesses could take today to make their employees healthier?
Hmm, there's a lot. Well, I mean, just tying off the last
Yeah.
point, if people um, were reawakened to the universal virtue of fasting,
Mhm.
but understood it scientifically, so they didn't feel like there was any religious pressures on them,
Mhm.
then, yeah, I mean, I consider fasting to be really our ultimate spiritual weapon in a sense. It's so powerful,
It's amazing.
and
Mhm.
so lost, because it's not easy, it's not fun, but it is important, and especially in this society where we have too much in
Funny.
so many ways. So yeah, if I could only encourage one thing to an organization, it would be spread the wisdom of fasting and make it
Mhm.
scientific and physical, and
Mhm.
it doesn't need to be religious at all.
Yeah.
But when people fast, they will have a spiritual experience, as
Yeah.
well as a physical cleansing.
Yeah.
And when they return to work, they'll be a new person.
Yeah. And I think also you get more in tune to your body and its needs because I think we forget about that as we get on the schedule of, oh, it's lunchtime, go get lunch. Oh, it's dinner time, go get dinner. You just kind of go like at the hamster wheel, just like with work. You're not really paying attention. And by taking this break, you actually get more in tune to your internal workings as well as your physical workings and what's really going on with yourself. And then you can take a step back and say what's working, what's not working. And yeah, it's great advice to start with that. And, everyone can come on board and like, let's make it a challenge where we could all do 1-day fast together and make it fun, like the Queen of Green did with the taking walks outside in nature. It's a fun way to do something together.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, how
I
do
think,
people get a copy of your book and find out more about you? How do they do that?
yes, thank you. So I'm Justin S. Grant, and I'm all over socials at Justin S. Grant, and my website, justinsgrant.com, is where they can learn about me and my book and
Awesome.
supporting music and meditations and newsletters, etc. So yeah,
Awesome.
thanks so much for having me, Christina. I
You
enjoyed it.
betcha. You betcha. And I hope this inspires businesses to think more broadly about how to bring health and wellness to their employees. Thank you so much, Justin.
Okay, thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Like, subscribe, and share this episode. To listen to more savvy episodes and savvy biz tips, go to www.lifeunscriptedradio.com. To find out about our paid sponsorship opportunities or how to become a guest, email Christina at lifeunscriptedradio.com.